My name is Alex Yampolskiy. I'm a CEO of SecurityScorecard, the leading security rating platform in the world. In this video series called Security DNA, I'm going to talk to people from all walks of life, board members, CIOs, CISOs, industry innovators, about what cybersecurity means to them and the latest trends. Welcome. So today on this Security DNA video thought leadership series, we welcome Grant Geyer. Grant was a VP in charge of managed security services and other product lines of business at Symantec. And then he was a SVP of products at RSA, where he was in charge of engineering and product for all of the product lines, Archer, SecurityID, NetWitness, and others. And currently, Grant is a CPO at Claroty, an ICS OT security company. Welcome, Grant.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alex.
So the first question I wanted to ask you, given your vast experience in cybersecurity arena, is, in your experience, how has the nature of risk changed in the now almost exclusively digital world? And how did you see the security strategies evolve to keep up with the changing landscape of the risk?
Yeah, well, I think of this, if we were to pull back from security for a second and just talk about risk management. Historically, risk management was done qualitatively through questionnaire. Risk assessments were done periodically, whether it was like quarterly or annually, and they were always backward looking, right? You're always trying to manage risk looking in the rearview mirror. But now with so many digital initiatives that are just commonplace in the modern enterprise, risk, you can't effectively manage risk looking in the rearview mirror. So risk needs to be data driven. It needs to be real time, quantitative, hopefully predictive in nature. And you need to, while I think there's always going to be a need for qualitative and questionnaire based, predominantly you have to be able to keep your fingers on the pulse of digital risk, right? And that means a data driven approach. What I see is that is the root cause of the change. But it drives so many particular areas of need in terms of security. So, for example, as organizations continue to grow their workforce and they manage more and more identities, how do you ensure that people are who they claim to be? So identity becomes, that challenge increases. When you have more and more service accounts, how do you prove that things are what they claim to be? So the nature of risk changes dramatically in every area of security. As the current Chief Product Officer at Claroty, one of the things that I'm really kind of intrigued by is, for 25 years, all of these operational technology environments and ICS environments were separate and distinct from the IT environment. And now what we saw with NotPetya and WannaCry is all of these resiliency issues occurred on these environments. People are recognizing that the IT environment and OT environment are connected. And so people need to rethink not just how do I protect my IT environment. A lot of times the crown jewels of many verticals is the OT environment. So how do you rethink digital risk of the combined environment as in the new world of the modern enterprise?
Thank you. Great insights. So the second question I have is, we've seen this happen in the current climate as many people shifted to work from home, but it's a bit of an old story. We've seen that many CIOs focused on get employees up and running first and think about cybersecurity second. It's not a new story. We've seen it happen with many business projects before, where the business folks think about how to make money, how to get business up and running, and then cybersecurity always comes second, creating a bit of a dichotomy between the CISO and the rest of the executive suite. So, have you observed this problem? How do you think we can change this? What do you envision could be some ways for us to mitigate this common event?
Well, I just think that, again, given the nature of digital transformation, we can no longer, the cycle time between starting an initiative and then fixing problems or managing risk after the event is way too long for digital initiatives, right? It really comes down to how do you drive improvements in the cycle time. And I know this from my work as a product leader, and as organizations start doing a lot of cloud-built apps in-house, what you don't want to do in the modern world is build the product, then hand it off to quality engineering, then hand it off to production, right? If you look at modern DevOps models and the whole kind of shift left initiative, the key is how do you have a team working concurrently where you have product development, quality, user experience, security, operations, operations in the production environment, all working as part of the same Scrum team. And so that team is pushing the button instead of doing a handoff, right? And so I think the key is getting security instrumented into the pipelines, having security teams part of the process so that they're understanding and managing risk early on in the product development process. I think that's really the key. It is more of a mindset change that needs to come before you actually operationalize it. Without the right mindset and without the right strategic focus on shifting left, you're always going to be in that problem of dealing with risk and security as an after effect of not caring for it early on at the project inception.
Mindset change, incorporate security into the development pipeline. A lot of good insights. So the third question is, if you looked at the earlier ESG survey that they've done a little bit earlier in the year, over 60% of the surveyed organizations said that they plan to increase their cybersecurity spend in 2020. Now, of course, this was before the coronavirus lockdown, when things were kind of easier and simpler. And so nowadays, a lot of the CIOs and CISOs are reassessing the criticality of what they invest in. So the question to you is, I mean, if you look at your crystal ball, what do you believe are going to continue to be must-have versus nice-to-have projects? Do you envision the cybersecurity spend continuing to increase? What do you think might be the shifts and priorities in the current climate?
You know, it's funny, Alex, that ever since I've been in security, there's always been this statement that we are living in a primitivist world, that the four walls of the empire of the enterprise are no longer really in existence. That's something we're accustomed to hearing. But in reality, people have been architecting their environments with a stack necessarily for their on-prem environment. And what you've seen with the shift to working from home is that the applications that are SaaS-based just work, right? The applications that are on-prem tend to require a lot of adjustment. And so what I think is that any crisis is going to accelerate your journey towards an end state. And so now, yes, the environment is perimeterless. Now it's really perimeterless. So when you think about, like, I think zero trust becomes that much more important than it was in the past. Like Google Beyond Corp initiative talked about zero trust a long time ago, which the premise of which is that you have to think about your internal environment as untrusted as the internet is, right? And if you think about it that way, there's a number of things that you need to do in terms of having managed devices, inventories of managed devices, privileged access, a multi-factor authentication. It all of a sudden raises the need to ensure that the system is secure and that users are who they claim to be. So I think there are clear beneficiaries of this change. And the other area is this new SASE movement that's coming on board, where you're trying to add your controls into the WAN or into the network fabric. I think is going to be a more pervasive trend as well.
Great insights. Thank you very much, Grant. Great insights, great leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Pleasure having you.